Chapter 1. I walked into Zalucky Bonds and Investigations, and the first thing I noticed was receptionist Kathy. Kathy looked like she had been hit with gunfire and trench warfare and still needed recovery time in the hospital. "Kathy!" I exclaimed, not even reaching for my daily morning donut. "What happened?" "Oh, nothing much. Yesterday I walked out of the library and fell down the stairs and broke my leg. Then I accidentally rolled into the street and got ran over." Kathy laughed like her injury was a funny joke from a hot guy she wanted to shag. "Is that a thing that happens?" I was confused. "Well, it happened to me." Kathy gave a "oh well" shrug. "And you're still here at work." I looked at the arm cast and the wheelchair she sat in. "Well, Helen was worried." "Worried about you or the 5 phone calls we'd miss if you weren't here today?" I rolled my eyes. "Seriously, Kathy, you shouldn't be here." "Don't worry, I won't work too hard. I'm reading one of those electronic books." Kathy was using her left arm to move the computer mouse while the right one was propped up in a cast. "What you reading?" I had forgotten that Kathy's favorite books tended to be in the horny genre. "It's called Below Deck, not to be confused with the reality show." "What's it about?" "It's about a sea crew out in the ocean looking for artifacts." "Oh!" You could tell I was surprised. "Sounds gripping." "There's a ton of sex," Kathy confirmed my initial thoughts. "Oral, penetrative, anal, mutual masturbation." Wow, it sounds gripping? I wasn't sure what word choice works well. I grabbed my donut before Kathy could fill me in on who or what was getting poked in their below deck. I walked to the back of the office and scanned the room. Thankfully, Jack Douhicky, the colleague the entire office hated, wasn't at his desk. Santiago and Ryan, other co-workers of ours, were absent. The office was pretty spacious since Cleveland property values were cheap. My desk was in a separate space called the Annex. It was hidden away a bit, an old conference room turned cubicle space. I didn't have the space alone. I shared it with fellow bounty hunters and investigators, Mariah Lockwood and Alison Webb. Mariah and I got along really well. The only difference between us was that Mariah tended to be a bit bitchier and pessimistic. I like to think I was a nice person who was realistically positive. Alison was louder than 5 Italians in a coffee shop and had more bravado and audacity than a bus filled with cis-straight white men. She was the outcome of growing up with unfettered confidence as a child. Alison saw me and lit up. "I have some good news." Alison's version of good news was a blanket statement that could mean good news, indifferent news, or bad news. "You got a new top?" I pointed to the bright turquoise number Alison was wearing. "Thank you for noticing, unlike some people." Alison snapped her thick neck right over to Mariah. "Everything you wear is a bright color," Mariah mused while sipping coffee. "Don't you have turquoise tops in the first place?" I have 4, yes." Alison rolled her eyes as if turquoise tops were as unique as snowflakes. "But this top is different." "Am I going to get the good news?" I questioned. "Yes," Alison focused up. "This week is Cleveland Dating Week, and I've signed up you, me, and Mariah to compete." "Compete? In a dating week?" "Be a part of it, whatever." Alison shook her head. "The first event is tonight." "I have plans," I quickly countered. "What plans?" Alison and Mariah both questioned at the same time. Being put on the spot like that made me falter. I was not good at improv and was jealous of phenomenal bullshitters. I decided to change my approach before they strung me up on the stake for perjury. "This seems like a lot. We have court this week, and our regular skips. That's a busy schedule, let alone adding anything else. I think dating week has to go." Mariah, who I would have expected to be an advocate, showed her true colors. "We don't have any cases right now, and court should be a piece of cake. This is the perfect week to go on some dates." Court was not going to be a piece of cake. The trial against Jeremiah Redwood was starting today. Tomorrow, I was supposed to report for testimony. Long story short, Jeremiah Redwood was a former cop who was a part of a small group dealing drugs. In a murderous act of revenge against his partners, he framed a man named Larry Elroy for murder, killed another partner, and almost killed Ryan Mazzola, who now works for us. Jeremiah was originally caught, but then escaped prison with the help of a mystery conspirator or two. Finally, it all came to a head. Jeremiah Redwood, along with a couple of 2-bit rent-a-dime torture experts, planned to kill Mariah, Alison, Ryan, Santiago, and me. However, the torture experts knocked Redwood out cold in a plot twist. Among the original charges Larry Elroy had been framed for, he was brought up on a slew of charges and crimes against us. "We don't have any cases. Where's Ryan and Santiago?" They had a case, Alison answered. I guess there was just not enough cases to go around. Anyway, block out tonight, 6 p.m. It's the first dating event over at the Holstein Center. Think of it as an orientation. My mouth fell open. The Holstein Center? That was a giant arena next to a public university. How many people were they expecting for this dating week? Especially these days when you could swipe right on people from the luxury of your couch or bed. Yes, they're expecting thousands. Mariah's usual nihilistic eye twinkle had been replaced by a dash of hope I wanted to destroy. This might be a good opportunity. I think all of us would have to look into goat sacrifice for help with our dating life. Speak for yourself, I pouted. I recently had a date. Alison called me out instantly. Recently as in 5 years recently? A date with what? The television? Mariah guffawed. Let's go talk with Kathy. Maybe a skip has come in? I questioned, trying to get out of all this talk about Cleveland dating week. We returned to the front of the office. Kathy was still reading her sea porn, and Mariah had decided to climb onto a soapbox about Kathy's state. This is cruel. How come Helen's making Kathy work? Kathy's more bruised than a banana bushel that's fallen off Key Tower. It's fine, Kathy said to Mariah, pausing her reading. Kathy looked more upset over being torn away from her steamy book than she was about her injuries. It's not fine, Mariah corrected her, as if Kathy was incapable of speaking of the injustice happening. Let me help you staple something. Nothing needs to be stapled. Mariah began stapling some papers that lay on Kathy's desk. Quite often, Mariah would take her pent-up energy and direct it towards some issue of justice. Today's issue would be Kathy's current status as a walking hospital advertisement forced into indentured servitude. Matty, can you go talk to Helen about this? I didn't know what I was going to say to Helen, but I knew what Mariah would say to me if I didn't go talk to Helen. I gave Mariah a thumbs up, walked over like an awkward skeleton, and knocked on Helen's office door. I entered after hearing Helen grunt on the other side. I tried opening the door softly, but the door ended up slamming against the flimsy wall protecting Helen from the rest of the office. Helen turned up to me and gave me thin jaguar eyes, which would make a child scream in terror. She was sitting at her desk, which looked more like a throne with cheap fake gold accents. Her cotton candy blonde hair whipped around her otherwise Eastern European features, and a moderate amount of makeup tried to bring her back into her 40s. I want to talk about Kathy, I ordered. And I want some allergy medicine so I can fight spring allergies. But sometimes we can't get what we want. Can't you go buy that at a convenience store down the street? There's no time right now. Helen grabbed a tissue to dot her nose. Can't we hire someone temporarily until Kathy gets better? I pleaded. There's no money right now either. Kathy's fine. Now, can I finish writing this account? I turned out of the room quickly and filled Mariah in on the stirring developments. Kathy, why don't we help you? Mariah turned to a stack of files. Alison, can you file these? Alison was scandalized. I can't file those. When you were first hired here, you were brought on as an administrative assistant. Mariah pointed out the facts. Alison's original role had been as an administrative assistant, but like a tack-took girl boss, Alison had decided to promote herself into an investigator and bounty hunter. Helen, who notoriously hedged bets, had seen something in Alison to not question her self-promotion. I just wish the rest of us saw those same qualities. I still do work as an administrative assistant, Alison rebuffed. I assist the various members of the administration. Touché, I said from where I stood. The front door flung open, causing Mariah, Alison, and I to turn to the door. Kathy, who had been flustered by the faux help, returned to her e-book. A lady entered the building, although she was not dressed in a ladylike fashion. She looked like she had stolen Alison's bright, tight clothing and retailored it for a night out on the town. Hey, the woman yelled at the room at large. I need some help. We can help. I did not sound confident or official whatsoever. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the lady turned around right then and there from my tone. My name is Vegas. The newcomer extended her hand, which Mariah half-heartedly shook. Vegas wore makeup for 8 and had dyed blonde hair stuffed with extensions to compose a miniature beehive. Her cocktail dress was moments away from tearing at the seams. Her fur looked pretty expensive, while her heels were almost a foot high. She had a giant red handbag that looked like it could fit a whole shelf of goods. Her skin was tanned orange, serving Jersey Shore. Overall, my first impression was that this was a woman who worked in the sex industry. What do you do for a living? I asked, hoping that I was correct. It was like watching Jeopardy and playing along. I'm a people pleaser. Vegas sung in sweet overture. That was obviously not a job, to an extent. Any job could be defined as people-pleasing. That's not a job. What do you do? Mariah redirected. In some sense, you could call me a sex worker. Vegas clearly did not like the professional title, nor to be defined as such. Ah. Alison, Mariah, and I all turned to each other with nods and light smiles. Listen, I need some good help. Oh, I don't know if that's us, Mariah commented as if we were a bunch of novices. I was initially offended, but then I managed to come around. My diamond ring has been stolen. Vegas's voice snapped through the bullshit in the room. A diamond ring? Allison's eyes flashed, as if this missing diamond ring could be hers for the taking. How big is it? How lusty is it? Do you mean to ask how much luster the diamond has? I stared at Alison dryly, and then addressed Vegas. Typically, we handle investigations like cheating partners or missing diamond rings. Stolen diamonds is a bit more intense. Maybe you should go to the police. Vegas abruptly cut in. No, the police can't be trusted and I hate them. I need you to help me get my diamond ring back. I was skeptical of someone who didn't want to report a missing diamond ring to the police, but there were plenty of things you might not go to the police with. But a diamond ring? Vegas, Mariah began, her voice mimicking a parent who says their child's name in an exasperated tone. I could tell that Mariah was about to recommend for Vegas to go to the police. Kathy was listening in, not for work purposes, but for the drama. I'll pay you $2,000 each, Vegas blurted out. Alison clutched her chest. Mariah's eyes exploded into pure shock, while I staggered backwards, like I had been tossed flying by a wrestler. I wondered if Vegas could afford $6,000 on personnel, as well as the additional administrative costs for our services and other sundries expenses, but she might as well try. Kathy, can you pull up a contract? I asked, which caused a little frown out of Kathy. There were two ways we financially took on investigative services. We either take the job at a certain price picked out by our boss Helen, or we find and take the work and add an administrative fee for Helen. The former was preferred by my lazy side, the latter preferred by my desire for money. I gave Mariah and Alison a pouty, well, I guess, smirk. We might as well do it. It looks like a slow week for skips. We need information, Mariah prodded, but after you sign a contract and pay the down payment. I'll pay the whole thing now. Vegas put a finger to her face in contemplative thought. Wait, that's not smart. Half now, half when you get me my ring. Deal, I nodded, already figuring out that if we solved the case, my 3-figure checking account would hit 4 figures. Vegas opened her red handbag and pulled out a wallet made of smooth leather. From that wallet, she pulled out the thickest, largest black-colored credit card I had ever seen in my life and gave it to Kathy. I could see Kathy's hand give a little under the weight of Vegas's credit card. That's a big card, Mariah stuttered. I know that card. Alison eyed the credit card like she was watching the one card to rule them all. You get a $100,000 credit limit minimum. So Vegas can afford us, I gulped, eating my earlier beliefs that Vegas wouldn't be able to pay. Once her credit card was swiped and the contract signed, money first, here at Helen Zalewski's business, Vegas began explaining her story. The piece of shit who stole my family diamond ring is Maxamillion Ladorva. Mariah and I both took in a huge breath, realizing that signing the contract for $2,000 was probably a bad idea. Shoot, even $10,000 would not have been enough when it comes to Maxamillion Ladorva. He was one of the richest men in Cleveland, a billionaire who was supposedly related to one of the 10 rich families that own America. I was surprised a billionaire would want to stay in Cleveland. I suppose being a billionaire in Ohio was being like a trillionaire anywhere else. Vegas. Mariah paused for a minute, trying to think through the situation. That man, we are ants. He's an anthill. How? We don't have the supplies, the intel. We have nothing on him. I think what happens with Vegas needs to stay in Vegas, I added, turning for support to my teammates. We were already looking for an out, so we didn't have anything to do with Maxamillion Ladorva. You signed a contract, Vegas pointed to the piece of paper sitting in front of Kathy. Perhaps this is why we were pretty bad investigators. We should have probably asked a few questions about the stolen diamond ring. There's a clause that we can refuse to work a case if bodily harm or death is highly probable, I clarified. Bodily harm or death isn't highly probable in this case, Vegas sassed. At least not right now. It's more of an upcoming bodily harm or death, Mariah piled on. Well, technically, Vegas was right. We weren't close to being dead, yet. We might as well take an initial start and manage to get some kind of payment. Vegas, tell us exactly what happened first. How did Maxamillion get your ring? Well, that night I went over to his place. He first handed me a gift bag with a card and $10,000 cash. Wow, so today's payment would be theoretically covered just by her yesterday night appointment. Was Vegas looking for colleagues? Okay, so you get the gift bag with money. Then we screwed, Vegas said with a vague screwing hand motions, which would have made an ASL interpreter blush. Do you need details on the screwing? I eyed Mariah and Alison. Alison was ready for details more aggressively than a prosecutor interrogating a suspect in an interrogation room with broken cameras. I think we're good on just knowing you two played a game of salami slapping. I guess. Alison rolled her eyes, disappointed in the lack of sexy details. Vegas plowed on. So then I remembered we showered, and then he got me out of the house quickly. I didn't notice the ring was missing until I got to my car. I called him while I sat in my car outside his house, but he didn't answer. And you couldn't go back in? I asked. No, his security wouldn't hear it. And do you have his address? Mariah inquired, which prompted Vegas to give out the address. I wrote it down on my notes app. And do you have a picture of the ring? Vegas shared a picture of herself wearing the ring, which was extremely visible on her finger. There was a giant rock for a diamond, surrounded by small diamonds. It was so big that it almost seemed to cover 3 fingers. Vegas sent us the picture through airdrop. I also drew it for you. Vegas pulled out a piece of paper and showed us her drawing, which had some statistics in the corner of the page. 20 carats! Nice, Alison whistled. I took the drawing. Thank you. You have some talent in the arts. I know. That's why I currently work in the arts. Vegas winked slowly, allowing her centipede-sized fake lash to linger for a minute. All right, we'll go do some surveillance on Maxamillion's house, I promised. We'll try and maybe get in. But won't a billionaire have really tight security? That's the good news. Vegas looked like a pigeon who had gotten a whole loaf of bread. Maxamillion may be a billionaire, but he is a frugal cheapskate. He has a pretty big house, but has very minimal security. Huh, that's good. I looked up the address. And he doesn't live in the woods. Alison was relieved. Oh, good. I thought I would have to go home and get my hiking gear. I imagined Alison's hiking gear as gaudy and glittery camouflage. Thank you for doing this, Vega said with a giant smile. This ring is super important. My own mother gave it to me. It's been in the family for ages. How a diamond ring got into Vegas's family was a clue to me. Do you have a telephone number that's not business related? Mariah probed, hoping we wouldn't have to call Vegas's artistic cell phone number. Yes, here are both my numbers. You know, just in case, Vegas suggested, as if we would ever need her work number. I was very close to gagging, but considered that to be poor customer service. Thank you, Vegas. We'll call you if something juicy comes up. Ta-ta for now. Vegas vanished in a flash of fur and red. Are we seriously doing this? I asked Mariah. I think you are, since you signed a contract, Kathy said over her copy of literary porn. Mariah admonished me. Business is slow. It sounds easy. We're just apprehending stolen goods. The stolen good is a sex worker's diamond ring stolen by a billionaire. I exhaled deeply. $2,000 is good, but this case sounds dangerous. That money was too good to pass up. Alison gave a little jig in celebration of the impending windfall. We might not have anything else this week. The courts are known to be light this time of year. Says who? I countered Alison. Says the lack of work we have at the moment. You obviously don't know about Vegas, Mariah sighed with a shaken head, as if she was an expert on the Cleveland sex industry. She is the most expensive hooker in the suburb, and she's claimed to be the best. Word is that she's a 5-star, and she's the only one who's at a perfect score in the suburb. If Michelin stars were given out to sex workers, she'd have at least 3. She has high prices. Jeremiah Redwood. A couple $1,000, but for more expensive things, it could reach 5 digits. How do you know about this? I slanted my eyes and Mariah scowled. I just know. How is she in business? Nobody in this area makes that much money. It's Cleveland, not New York or London. Hello, there are a lot of rich people in Cleveland, Matty. It's the perfect place to have one of your summer houses. And with global warming, the Great Lakes region is a great place to be. And even if Vegas makes only several sales, she'll be set for a while. Rich people aren't just paying for sex, they're paying for glamour, the emotion and romance, and you're paying for the secret. I can't believe how desperate for cash we are. We're finding stolen jewelry from the town's most popular sex worker. And tonight we become the sex workers, Alison jumped in. I furrowed my brow. What do you mean? Tonight's the first night of Cleveland Dating Week. Alison cheered like it was a vacation to Mykonos and not an event of forced dates in a stadium. How would that make us sex workers? Mariah turned to me, and all I could offer was a shrug. I eyed my phone, which had -3 emails and texts. Well, we have nothing else to do but to drive by Maxamillion's estate. And practice our testimony, Alison chimed. My lips soured. I thought we weren't supposed to practice. That way we don't come across as rehearsed. Well, if we can practice sounding like we haven't practiced. I ignored Alison's claim to practice and led the group outside to the parking lot. While we walked to my Jeep, I noticed a car slow down on Cedar Avenue. In the car were 2 figures, both hooded and wearing sunglasses. They made eye contact with us before revving the engine with a loud bang and zipping down the street out of eyeshot. Who the hell was that? Mariah wondered. I don't know. But there was a part of me that felt weird. Something had been amiss. I just didn't know what.